Hi, welcome back for the second part of this talk about how we teach design thinking at the University of Warwick. So in the first part we looked at the context and the challenges that are raised specifically to do with that context of teaching this in an interdisciplinary way in a research intensive university like Warwick, but also some of the challenges that we know are there when teaching design thinking, design approaches, design methods more broadly. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at some of the solutions, particularly the technology-enabled solutions that we've used at Warwick and how they will work 100% online, maybe in 2021. That's our aim, and we'd actually been intending to move completely online, maybe with some face-to-face events anyway, before the university pivoted so quickly to online in March. Now, March was the time at which our teaching had finished and the students had gone off to compile their portfolios, work on the reflective essays, and we were planning to be giving them the opportunity of one-to-one online meetings to support them in doing that, and possibly some on campus. But actually we discovered that because by that point they were so used to using Teams and all the infrastructure behind that, and it was so integrated into how they were working, it just was dead straightforward. So we were quite lucky there. We had been actually pioneering the use of Teams at Warwick for a couple of years, probably the first course in the university to adopt Teams and this collaboration platform way of working. So we were very lucky at that. And we had meetings online with students all over the world. So they were in there, locked away in their bedrooms in, I think there was Nigeria, there was somebody in India, and lots of different locations. And it just worked brilliantly for us. Okay, so let's have a look at some. Yep, so really we've got to talk about the collaboration platform first, Teams. And note, we call this a collaboration platform. There's still a fair bit of confusion amongst the wider community about this, thinking about Teams in the same terms as Zoom. Okay, so Teams is first and foremost a collaboration platform. Teamworking is what it's about, and it's designed to support teamworking. In fact, when you try to stretch that away from teamworking to like conventional ways of teaching, so the lecture, 1 or 2 hour lectures, it's not so appropriate for that. There's a whole load of kind of infrastructure that your Teams users need to learn. It's not the kind of thing you can just dip into for an event and leave. Really, you need to get in there and become native within it, as they say. So you have to not be a visitor, you have to feel native to the system. And we found that our students, even though not many at the time, so back in January, not many other students across the university had any exposure to Teams or working in this way, they kind of just got it. And that's because it just works so well for our style of teaching. The important thing about Teams, well, lots of important things about Teams. So the first focus really is the team structure. And you can see that we have a team there, IL029 2020 introduction. That's the main team, and it has channels within it. And each of those channels can have a discussion board, which you can see on the right here, files, notes, and you can add lots of other tabs for the many different kinds of content and activities that you can add to this system oriented towards collaboration. Okay, so it has a notification system built into it as well. So you can see on that second post down, my initial message there. This is in the workshops channel. So this is where we're just giving them important information about workshops. Hi all, IL029. So what I've done there is done the at IL029, and a notification will have, as soon as I've posted that, gone out instantly to all of the members of the module who are in that team. Warwick has obviously pivoted to online very quickly and adopted Teams on a massive scale. We now have it integrated well-ish with our Moodle VLE and our student record systems, so that teams can be automatically created for modules with all of the students on the module added to it. And that helps a bit. But at this scale, we only have 30 students in each running of this. And we're happy to do all of the management ourselves. You can see underneath Teams there, we've set up, as the students progress through the module later on, I think it's about week 6 we did this time, they go into groups to work on the big design challenge at the end, which in this case was to design a VR event or activity for the Coventry City of Culture. To get out there in the community, and they broke down into groups, and we created a team for each group and let the students run with that and use it in whatever way they wanted to, and they did use it really well. So it has all of the kind of project management tools in there. You can organize tasks and meetings and calendars and stuff, so it's a place in which all of that stuff happens. And as they did disperse around the world, fortunately we found that it just carried on, so we didn't have to stop. The platform worked brilliantly. Of course, it has video conferencing built in, but it's got the advantage of the video conferencing sits within this team working infrastructure. So in video conferences, you have access as well to all of the shared files that you can collaborate on, and all of the content that's in the Teams space. Now, the latest addition to this, and we have tried this out, I'm legally contracted not to talk very much about it for some reason by Microsoft, but it is very good, is the breakout rooms feature, which is very, very similar to Zoom breakout rooms. And that's going to be hugely useful to us as we start to do those interactive workshops online. So all of the stuff we do in the big open space, where we're getting students to come together for what we call reflective jam, which is kind of circle time at the start and then go into groups, working groups, come back for mini lecture, etc. in this very flexible way, we're going to be able to do quite easily in Teams using breakout rooms. Something I forgot to mention at the start was that we call this the Platypus course, and it's got its own logo there, the platypus, and I think this comes from something that's in Tim Brown's Change by Design book, about how you kind of get these people today who are almost kind of unbelievable combination of skills. So, which is what we're trying to develop amongst the students. They're constructed of lots of different bits. They're drawing on skills from lots of different fields and putting them together in this kind of strange hybrid thing that is the platypus. And that's something I think we need to work harder on for 2021, is getting the students to represent themselves to each other and the outside world in this kind of multi-skilled way. Now, in the first running, 2019, we used a portfolio platform called Mahara, which is quite clunky, but it did have the benefit of having an individual homepage for each student that they developed. We want to do more of that with them. In 21, I've actually created a WordPress site on my own server called design-warwick.com, and we may do some of that kind of personal presentation aspect of the portfolio through that, and have a look at using WordPress, and there's also a wiki as part of it. But where the students are developing their work and developing themselves, principally in the last running of the module, was the digital portfolio platform, which we use OneNote, Microsoft OneNote, which turned out to be a familiar platform, a familiar tool for all of the students. So now OneNote has a Teams integration called ClassNote, which means you can create a Teams team, adding the students to it, and it will generate this nice OneNote structure so that every student has their own personal OneNote, which is a subset of this shared OneNote. And you can see there's on the left-hand side there, we've got a collaboration space, which is where there are pages that we can all collaborate on. A content library, which is pages where we can put a repository of resources to share with the students, and then each student has their own. And we set these up following a structure which we predefined, so they have a page for each of the design studies and a reflective journal page, which some of them used, some of them didn't keep a reflective journal in there. We can also push files from the content library out to all of the students. So I mentioned this in part one. We have this huge repository of files, I'll show you that in a second, of resources, and in this very agile way with our teaching, we can easily just send out a copy of the file to the students, which means they don't have to download it, but also it means they get a kind of their own personal collection of files that they can build up within their portfolio. Okay, so what you can see here is we got the design studies listed here. So this student's done four design studies, and a design study. This is the cafe anthropology, where they're going into a cafe with a partner and looking at how the cafe works, how the flows operate, how it nudges people to behave in certain ways, and how there's kind of accidental design details. So incredibly rich experience that we can pull out of loads of ideas. They would principally be documenting that in here, and you can see over on the right here I've been able to very quickly, as soon as they're starting to develop that, I'm in there leaving comments, leaving feedback and suggestions on how they can develop it more. This is good. They've got some diagrams and stuff in there. They're more or less elaborate. Some of them are incredibly elaborate and they've really gone to town. You can really use your imagination, and these pages are kind of infinitely expandable as well. So it's a canvas that they can use in linear or very non-linear ways, and some of them explore different structures in really interesting ways. So it's quite an interesting design challenge in itself to make the most of OneNote. You can put audio and video in quite easily too. So they are developing a story in here and building up also a meta story, the reflective essay about their development of their capability through these design studies. We were lucky last year. We got a class set of Ellen Lupton's brilliant book, Design is Storytelling, which we gave one copy to between two of the students. So that there's a very kind of rich set of examples of how to tell stories visually, design stories, lots of different story structures and that. So we did see that being used in how they do their design studies and then how they build their reflective essay over the top of that, which was great. Unfortunately, the students had disappeared by the end of the module, had disappeared all over the world, and we didn't get the books back. And we just said to them in the end, just don't bother, just keep them and keep using them. So some students were lucky and they managed to keep a copy of that. But that was a brilliant resource as well. We're going to have to think about how we do that, take bits of that and use it digitally without having to buy more sets of the books, although they're a brilliant thing to have. Another aspect of the OneNote system here, you can see that we've got in the content library, which is where we put all the resources, this huge collection of techniques, useful documents, all that kind of stuff that we can give to the students as their needs emerge, and we can distribute those using the OneNote system, the ClassNote book system, to individual students or groups of students or the whole class, and they just appear in their notebooks, which is really useful. And then they can take their own copy, annotate it, use it, do whatever they want with it. Class Notebook's got some other features as well, like assessment tools and things like that, which we haven't yet used. We may not really need them, certainly not with 30 students. It's mainly that as a kind of shared notebook, open notebook, and annotation feedback, that rapid thing, kind of trying to replicate what might happen in a conventional design studio with a kind of open notebook kind of thing where they're developing their ideas. So we can see them all out in the open. And in the next year, we're going to be doing more with peer review, peer evaluation, peer feedback of that, and getting the students to share them with each other, which is entirely possible with the OneNote system. Okay, so we do kind of lecture-y kind of things, much less so than the first time we ran the module, because we were finding the students were too passive. So we do shorter lectures, And we mix them up with polling and crowdsourcing. So Vevox is a great system for this. You can build your questions into PowerPoint, or you can run them separately. So it's got kind of conventional polling, but also crowdsourcing. And here's a case of crowdsourcing. You can see what Bo's doing here. Our mascot there, the fluffy platypus that Bo bought. We're having a little vote here to name the platypus, and so you can see the students have suggested names through the Vevox system, and then they're voting on the names that are appearing on that list. So they're doing that through their computers, through the browser, or mobile phones, or tablets. And Vevox is just a really slick system for getting that feedback, polling, asking rhetorical questions, etc. We use that all the time, and we can use that in online sessions as well. So that's, it's entirely seamless between online or in class. Playtime. This is going to be something that's very different if we go 100% online, because we're able to, as you can see here, have kind of playing with stuff. I got I think 20 virtual reality headsets. They're Oculus Goes. We've got some Oculus Quests as well, and we were able to bring them into the classroom and just play with them. That's going to be harder to do. So we're going to be obviously looking for different things to play with, and the emphasis on the tools that we're playing with to inspire our design ideas will be different because we're working in the online environment. But mustn't forget that the students aren't, they're not 100% online. They're in their own space, so there are things that they can go and find and explore in their own space as well, which will be interesting. It just might not be quite as exciting as this. One of the things we did do with this that was really cool was to use a 3D draw art package where we it was the Google one, I've forgotten what it's called now, where we took turns going into the VR headset and building artistically a 3D house with all kinds of features and projecting that 3D house onto the big screen so they could all see it. That's the kind of collective playfulness that we need to encourage. And when we're choosing digital tools, playfulness, that kind of attractive emotional aspect, is actually really, really important. So as a kind of shared whiteboards system, we've been looking at tools like Miro and Mural and thinking, yeah, they're really good, but they don't quite feel as playful as they need to be. So we've actually, to play that role, that kind of shared whiteboarding, we've chosen a tool that you might be surprised by. We'll get back to that in a second. One of the things we do is, as I mentioned in the first part, run a conference where this year it was all about virtual reality and virtual reality experience and experience design for virtual reality, and we had Lumina Immersive as part of that. Now, doing that online, we are 100% confident in running that in Teams as a virtual conference, because in my other role as academic technologist, I've run several big virtual conferences with people from across the university and external people dropping in doing sessions. And so it's not just people talking at you from the screen, it's collaborative, developing documents, products together, okay, which is fantastic. Two things that are really key to the live experience. One is the reflective jam, where we, at the start of every session, sit in a circle and we talk about the challenges, we talk about inspirations, we share things, we actually bring things in to look at and share, etc. We do that for about half an hour. I think we'll be okay doing that in Teams, maybe using the breakout rooms to reduce the size of that circle and get people more interactive. In a way, doing it digitally online is more flexible for us, so we can break out into smaller groups and come back into bigger groups faster, quicker, and more agile. So that could be really good. Peer evaluation and support. This is something we need to do more often. Get the students sharing their design studies earlier and giving each other feedback and helping each other. So that's something we're going to bring in next year, possibly using a tool in the Moodle VLE. We don't use Moodle hugely, but it's got some good tools. And there's a tool called Workshop, which is good for that kind of structured peer evaluation process. So we'll see how that goes. Yep, and here's the surprise. So for the shared whiteboards functionality, we've gone with Padlet. Now, partly because my team in the university had bought Padlet as a site license for the whole university anyway, so it's convenient. But I was evaluating Miro and Mural, and they're really good professional tools. And I think if we were working with a team of students who had longer to get into them, we might use them. But what they're missing is fun. And Padlet is it's not perfect. There are some features that are obviously massive omissions, but it's fun, it's colourful, it's bright, it's collaborative. You can easily get anybody into a Padlet from within the university or outside working on it together. And it seems to be so simple and so fast to pick up that it's kind of ideal, especially for this role where we may be doing this kind of design thinking with the wider community and getting people from all over the city or all over the world to come online together and be playful. Here's an example of so Padlet, bottom right hand corner. There's lots of different people are probably more familiar with the wall type Padlet, which is kind of an unorganized wall of posts. There's lots of other types, as you can see. So Canvas. This is a Canvas Padlet, which you can do the kind of flowchart thing with, joining the posts with arrows and labels on the arrows and all that kind of stuff. You can do color schemes. It's a bit restrictive, but there's enough there. I've been doing this as part of some learning design work, and you can see this is an example from my learning design work with staff at the academics at the university designing learning pathways. Okay, and you can see that here, and it's worked quite well. So I've been able to get people who've never done this before, introduce a load of concepts and ideas about learning design, and get them doing it on Padlet, and they pick it up really fast and they start doing interesting stuff. So Padlet is going to be, I think, absolutely fundamental. Some of the other Padlet types there are kind of more sort of free-form brainstorming. Shelf, one of the Padlet types, is just like Trello, so you can make categories of posts vertically and organize things. And you can also move between many of these. So you can collect brainstorming on wall and then organize stuff into a shelf. So you have these kind of design thinking workflows there, developing ideas, collecting ideas. Okay, so I'm just getting onto a few things here that we might find challenging and we're going to have to work harder on. One of them is right at the start, we do a big exercise called analog social networking, where we get them to write little cards about who they are, introducing themselves, what their specialism is, what they're really interested in, and then on a giant whiteboard paper on the wall there, join them all up. And we do this in this big teaching space called the experimental teaching space, which is very flexible, lots of wall space. So I think we're fairly confident that we can do this with Padlet, so technically it's possible, but will it be as exciting as what you can see here? And you can see Bo's clearly excited by this whole thing, and the students really got into it. It was a kind of great ice-breaking thing for the whole class, and actually then helped us to form the relationships. So that's going to be an interesting question, is how well that works. We can do it with Padlet, we can do it with breakouts and stuff in Teams, video conferencing in Teams. It's all possible technically, but how good is it going to be? We're not entirely sure yet. And the really big challenge is going to be this. So that's Mark from Highly Sprung. That's my son there. So Highly Sprung is this physical theatre group who do a lot of stuff for children, but actually also do some amazing work with universities and businesses. And they run physical theatre workshops that are all about developing people's curiosity, willingness to try things, helping them to know how to get unstuck, teamwork, all that kind of risk taking, so understanding risk. And they've run a 2-hour workshop for us now twice, which has been absolutely superb. That's what it looks like. We all get involved. We all do these kind of physical theatre exercises that kind of push the limits and get us thinking about bodies, movement, risk, all that kind of stuff, which is the students absolutely love. And you can see that there's the feedback they put on the blackboards at the end of those sessions. So they were really got a lot out of that. And in their reflective essays, they reported back that was brilliant. So if we couldn't run that, we're going to have to be really imaginative about how we do that. If it's kind of we're in a purely 100% online environment, that kind of physical theatre stuff that we found so important in the transformation process, that's going to be an interesting challenge.